Alright, here we go. Got my boy Flacko Bio, aka Dutch Vega, in the building. Welcome to Excuse Me TV.
Word. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir, man. We go back a little ways.
Over 15 years now?
Yeah, it's been about that.
I think, or 15 years exactly, something like that.
Something
I think it was like 2010,
Yeah, somewhere around there. It was 2011, something like that.
2011. Okay,
Yeah.
about to be 15.
Yeah, so
Word.
yeah, it's been a hot minute, and you've been real vocal on social media.
Forever.
Yeah, for as long as I've known you. So you got a lot to talk about, and I want to bring you on here so that
Word.
we could talk about some of that
Word.
stuff that you talk about.
Word.
So, first, we're gonna talk about where are you from?
Word. I'm from the Bronx, born Eastchester Garden Houses, and then moved to Allerton over by the Skate Key, the original Skate Key.
Wow, okay, classic Bronx stuff. The Skate
Classic
Key.
Bronx.
People
North
don't know,
Bronx.
people don't even know what the Skate Key is. Skate Key is to the Bronx what Empire Roller Disco was to Brooklyn.
Right.
So only the real.
Right. Only the people who know and from the soil from that era even know what that is.
Yeah. So, how was it like growing up in the Bronx for you in that time? Like, what was life like for you?
Oh man, it was fucking lit. Right? Like you don't know that you poor. You just growing up. You're just growing up, and I'm growing up in the North Bronx, not far from where Slick Rick was at, and he did shows in the projects, in the park. It was just one of those areas that was kind of lit back then for the North Bronx. Wild, a lot of people aren't aware of it, but like wild West Indians, Jamaicans, that whole area is like a lot of Caribbean just mixing and melting over there.
Oh, and you talk about ethnicity. You one of them people that are like racially ambiguous. Like you could pass for anything. You could be an Aki. You could be a light skinned black dude.
When I was on my way out here, I was thinking to myself, because a 30-something-year-old fucking Indian chick with her husband and her son was eyeballing the fuck out of me. And I was like, these Indian bitches really think I'm one of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could be Indian, you could be Arabic.
Yeah.
I'll be like, man, and then like sometimes you grow the beard. You like, I don't know what this dude is. So,
right.
What exactly is your
ethnic makeup?
Yeah, what is
Word. That? My mother is Nicaraguan, Garifuna, right? Black Nicaraguan. My father is Puerto Rican. I was just looking at my great grandfather on my father's side, and his census, he marked himself down as mulatto. So like my father's side of the family is like, mixed. Some of them are like black. Some of them are fucking white passing Puerto Ricans. All my siblings are like white passing Puerto Ricans. I'm the darkest one of the family. Oh, but wow. Yeah, I mean, I always tell people I'm Afro-Latino, Black Latino. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's dope. Mm-hmm. That's dope. So growing up, were you, because the Bronx, you got black people, you got Spanish people, mm-hmm. You got Little Italy, you got all these different ethnicities. So who did you find yourself hanging out with more growing up?
I mean, shit. All my friends were all black. Even the other Latin kids, like my mom's best friend, she had a best friend that she would spend wild time with in the projects that they were on the 3rd floor, we were on the 5th floor. And her son, Jose, was, they were Puerto Rican, but he was black, dark. So it was like, even when I'm hanging with other Latino kids, they were just like me, like black. So everybody that I was around was mostly black back then, especially in that neighborhood.
That's like a hot topic of discussion right now because, race and ethnicity,
mm-hmm.
and, you have some Latinos who identify with their white side, and then you have the
most Latinos.
Yeah, so what do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about the people who, you look at this dude, they be dark, as midnight.
And they be like, I know black?
Yeah, I'm not black.
Yeah, that shit hurts. That
hurts.
That shit is like, what, bro? What the fuck did you just say?
It's like you want to get away from the blackness.
Right.
But like, to me, I feel like all the black side is what's the good part. Like, the food, the dance, the music.
All of it comes from Africa.
The black shit.
All of it comes from Africa.
Yeah.
The drums, the instruments, the music, the food, right?
That's the popping part.
I was just watching an interview with Godfrey talking to Crazy Legs, and Godfrey brought up a great point, which is like, you know what unites all of us? The plantain.
The plátano.
The plátano.
Yep.
All of us. Every fucking country, every Latin country, every African country, everywhere that there's black people, which is all the Latin countries, it's just they don't like to acknowledge it. The plantain. The plantain unites us all. He was even talking about being in like Deutschland somewhere, and some, I forgot what African country ended up migrating there in big numbers. He was like, that homie was like telling him about some dish, and then he brings it out, and what is it? A fucking plantain. That plantain.
Yeah,
everywhere we at.
You're right, because they just got a different name for it.
Different
they
name
might
for
cook it a different way, but it's
cook it a different way, but it's still the same shit.
Same plant,
it's the same thing. It's either gonna be like
mashed,
yeah. like what do they call it? What is the Puerto Ricans and Dominicans?
Mangú.
Or like the fucking plátano, like the tostones, maduros, all that shit.
It's all the plantain.
Yeah, all.
Yeah, and like you said, the music. I mean, you're talking about the music. It all comes from the black side. Like in Spain, you know, that's what they try to claim. I don't see them doing that.
None of it.
In Spain,
none of it.
So
they don't do none of that. None of that. The first music on the island of Puerto Rico, right? Bomba y Plena. That is all music that, because all the African slaves that came, right? Because that's something that the OGs that I know in the Bronx always taught me, was like, oh, we just got dropped off on different boats in different places. You know what I mean? But it was always like, yo, all the different countries of African descent that were enslaved, right? Even the free Africans that came over, they all spoke different languages, different tribes in Africa that speak different languages. And so the way they would communicate with each other from plantation to plantation with Bomba y Plena was through the music and communicating through the dance and the music, because they couldn't speak the same language. And then that's how they communicated with the enslaved indigenous Tainos on the island, except the ones that were up in the mountains that didn't get enslaved, right? But then when they got away, when you ran away from the plantation or ran away from whatever boat that you was on, you'd end up in the mountains. And then once you're in the mountains, you up there with the Tainos. That was same thing with Mexicans, right? That there's Mexicans. There's I watched the Che Guevara two movie back when they used to make 2 parts to a movie because it was too much to put it all on one. And I remember when he was traveling through a certain part of Mexico, it was like Mexicans coming down from the mountains, and they were like, they never got conquered by the Spanish because the Spanish never went up that far.
Wow.
The Spanish were always on the coast.
Yeah.
The Spanish were pretty wicked when you look at it too. That's why I always like all that like love that Latinos have for Spain and wanting to be Spanish. I'm like, why? They don't fuck with you. They don't like you. They don't respect you. They don't look at you with any love. When they landed, when you look at the way that the English landed and they gave smallpox blankets to the indigenous, right? The Spanish landed, they didn't play none of them games. They landed, they planted their flag, they like, suck my dick. You speak Spanish now, you worship Jesus Christ, this is my gold, these are my bitches, you're gonna have my babies, my bastard babies, they're not gonna have my name. And you know what I mean? Straight strong arm, get down and lay down state property style. You know what I mean? So it's just like, why you have so much love for a master that don't claim you in any way? Like what? That don't make no sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because like, you know, when I did my research, like I found like the you familiar with the Parsley Massacre in DR?
Yeah.
So like it was like, yo, if you was black, you was getting killed on the spot. If you didn't say parsley the right way,
They
He
still
pronounced it with the French way.
They still
So
right.
that stuff is real deeply rooted. There's a lot.
That shit still.
Yeah, it's deep
Look, modern day
psychological
society
stuff.
in Dominican Republic, you dark, you still couldn't get into clubs
Yeah,
to go party.
yeah,
You have to do Bronx hip hop shit and make your own party in your neighborhood, in the house. You can't go to the club. You couldn't pass the paper bag test. You asked out.
yeah, yeah. So with you with music, so when did you start getting into music yourself? Like growing up, you know, who were your influences? Like what were you listening to growing up?
Oh, definitely the first thing that I ever heard was Slick Rick. That was the first person I heard rhyming. That was the first like performance I ever saw live, him performing in the park. Um, and then from there it was just like typical growing up in New York City shit, you know? So like whatever would play on BLS on the weekends before Hot 97 even existed. And then whatever would play on Hot 97. So like Naughty by Nature, um, I remember I remember having the OPP tape, and my older brother had went away to the Navy, and he came back. He told my parents what OPP stood for, and they took away my tape, and I was so angry at him. I was so heated. I was like, this fucking snitching bitch. Um, Naughty by Nature, Salt and Pepper, like my downstairs neighbor that she used to be like my babysitter. She had like four kids, two daughters, two sons, but they were all way older. Like I was a little kid, 6, 7, and they were already like teenagers, early 20s. And they bought me Salt and Pepper, Salt with a Very Necessary Pep album on CD. That was my first CD. And then from there, like by the time I, you know what I mean, turning like 12, 13, like Biggie, Nas, all that's coming out, you know what I mean? So like listening to that, and then everything else, the mixtapes, the DJ Dirty Harry mixtapes, the SNS mixtapes, Uptown Kid, so Uptown DJs, you know what I mean? Uptown mixtapes.
Yeah, so you were in that golden era. You really
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that. So at what point did you say, you know what? I think I could do that. Like who was it that was it an artist that made you say, yo, I could do that? Or were you looking at it saying, damn man, that's too hard for me. I don't know if I could do that. How were
Nah,
you
it
how did
was
you get
definitely
into it?
Biggie made me want to rap. Biggie made me want to
Yeah,
do that shit. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Biggie made me want to rap, and then everything that I molded, like to this day, I'm still doing things a la Biggie. You know what I mean? Like uh the music that I'm doing now is like Andre 3000 on Love Below or Kanye on 808s and Heartbreak. Like I'm on my singing shit. But it's because Biggie sang on Player Hater. And so it's just like I've always looked at it like Biggie, like, nah, I can't stay limited to just one thing, one lane. I can't only do boom bap just because I'm from New York. Like, nah, I gotta rap over everything. Biggie rapped over Bone Thugs and Harmony type beat with the Bone Thugs and Harmony type flow just to prove that he could do their shit better than they could. You know what I mean? And that's how I've always looked at it. Like, I can't just do New York shit. Like, I gotta do everything and do it well. And that all comes from Biggie. So Biggie's the one that like really, really made me be like, yo,
yeah. So when you wrote, how old were you when you wrote that first rhyme?
um, maybe like 13, 14, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So you write the rhyme. What'd you think? Like, was you like, yeah,
Oh, I was
yeah,
I was horrible, but
yeah,
I was on some 80s. I was listening to Biggie, but I was on some 80s fucking what's their name? Rapper's Delight type shit. You know what I mean? Like fucking tribute to the players, near and fall type shit.
yeah?
You
That
know what
was
I
played out at that
mean? Yeah,
time,
it was
man. That
already
was
played out,
over.
but that was like my first.
That was your intro.
That was my first rhyme.
That
Some
was your
old
first.
fucking crazy 80s.
All right,
Halfway through it, I switched up the style,
right, right.
but it started with an 80s style.
Yeah. But like you said you felt like, you do that, and then rappers always had that competitive element to it.
Right.
So at one point you get into battle rap. How did
Right.
that come about?
I mean, being from the Bronx, right? Like, yo, you're in the Bronx, you're fucking rapping, and somebody comes over and says, like, fuck that shit. And you're like, what? Fuck that shit. Fuck you, motherfucker. And then let's see who's wittier. Let's see who, you know what I mean? Let's see whose bars are better. And after I got my first like crowd reaction in a battle, it was off to the races. It was like, what? It was like I don't know, because I've never done crack or heroin, but I would imagine it's like that first hit. Like it was fucking crack to me. Like, nah, I need that reaction. I want that reaction over and over and over again. And that was, you know what I mean? That became something that I chased along with chasing making the music.
All right. So with the battle rap at that time, you had a couple different leagues that were around. And what were you aspiring to get on any of them? What were you like? How did that come about? How did you wind up going into the actual arenas to do your thing in front of a camera? Because battling somebody on the block,
Right.
just walking
Very
past in
different.
front of a little crowd in the park, that's a little different from, yo, we're gonna bring these cameras, lights, and mics, and we're gonna have a
Right.
crowd, and people are paying admission to get in the building, and you start. So how did that come about?
Um, so really the first thing that always comes to mind to me is like learning things. I learn a lot of things just from watching, seeing other people doing them. So like I said, right, like I saw Biggie, heard Biggie, and then I'm just like, okay, I can do this. I'm gonna try to do this. I want to be careful here. I could do this better than Biggie. Let's get it right. I wasn't being arrogant. It was just somebody that you admire, right? And so I saw him doing it, and so I want to do it. And with battling from the block to pro, I saw on HBO Blaze battles, and I saw RZA battling. I forgot who it was. I think it was Big Moondog or somebody like that. But it was the Blaze battles on HBO. HBO aired some fucking rap battles, and I was just like, whoa, hold on. And then I had a friend who she just knew everybody. She was just one of them people that was, a party girl that was popping. Shouts out to you, Kathy. Shouts out to Kat. And she knew people at Fight Club. And she introduced me to her homie who worked at Fight Club. And he told me to come on a certain date. And I fucking went with a bunch of freestyle, like just ready to freestyle. Cause back then it was turning from freestyle to writtens, but I noticed that my freestyle ability was really good, and I would get really big crowd reactions with the jokes that I would have to people's writtens. And so I just did that, and I showed up to Fight Club, and I battled. I forgot dude's name. I really do. But I battled him, and I said something about like it was at the tail. It was after bubble coats went out of style, and his boys had bubble coats on behind him. He was doing, typical like mixtape bars. Like I blast the fitted off your dome piece, and I was not wearing the fitted. So I'm like standing there, like going, like, what fitted? Like, what are you talking about? And I just started gigging on him and his boys, fucking bubble, and I had the cameraman laughing. That's how I knew, like, I was frying them because the cameraman was laughing, right? But International P was not laughing. And after the battle was over, International P was like, yo, don't ever come up here freestyling again, ever. And I was just like, damn, okay. Wow. So at that point, I was just like, so I guess freestyling went from being like a skill that I had to like a parlor trick to bust out at parties or ciphers with the homies. And even that started going away as the years kept going. But the first league that I battled in was Fight Club. And I went there. I had my homegirl Sarah Connor with me. And then they started really trying to get her to battle Lady Luck. And I battled maybe 3 or 4 times. But a lot of battles didn't make it back then. Like, WoW people would battle. And none of our battles ever saw the light of day because they were on MTV. And they only put out it was like Boondocks. They would put out 1 episode every month or some shit. And they only put out so many people's battles. So none of my battles ever came out on the channel. Either International P or MTV has my first battles. And then from there, I kept on battling in the streets. And then Sarah Connor, shouts out to my sister Sarah Connor, she got linked up with Grind Time through Pumpkinhead, and I did a tryout battle, and Pumpkinhead fucked with me heavy, and he immediately offered me a battle for the very next event. It was 3 weeks away. He was like, "Yo, I got a event coming up." It might have been 2 weeks or something like that. I remember it being a short time. Back then, it was you had at least a month or a month and a half to prepare for a battle. It was the beginning of things going from on the spot to having preparation and knowing who your opponent was. And even though things were turning into that, I did not get that because my tryout was a couple weeks before the event. And he fucked with me so much that he was like, "Yo, I got a battle for you. This kid named AKA." And that was my first battle at Grind Time East Coast.
Wow. So now you're battling on Grind Time, and I remember around that time I started watching the battles because you had the Smack came around that. But I remember D-Rec used to call himself the Mark Zuckerberg of battle rap, and I used to love watching those battles. And I think that was the first time I saw you was on one of those battles. I forgot who it was, but yeah, I saw you, and I remember you just had them jokes, and that shit was just funny. And I remember what was it? He said the sell seashells to the kid.
Oh, that was the kid that I was telling you earlier that he had a lisp, and I was like, "I dare you to say Sally sold seashells by the seashore, seamshore successfully." Something like that. I can't remember it now, but I did the Sally sold seashells by the seashore and seamshore successfully. Something like that. And yeah, that battle
got a reaction.
that battle did really good for me, and it did really good for me because it went up on World Star, and World Star mattered back then. That was before YouTube was really popping and cracking like that, and World Star was maybe as much popping, if not more popping. It was like Media Takeout or TMZ meets the Hood type shit. And bro, when that battle went up on World Star, which by the way, it still is there. I recently went and looked it up, and it's still, I did not know that World Star still existed, and that battle is still on the World Star website. And that battle got me known all over the city. I would go places and people would be like, "Oh, Dutch Vega," which was my old name.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Yeah. So the name Dutch Vega, how did you come up with that name?
I did not. That old school New York shit, right? You don't name yourself. When I got into Grind Time, I was astonished by how many rappers named themselves. I was like, what the fuck kind of shit is this? You name yourself. The Hood named me, the homies named me. I got the name because I was chilling with older heads. I was always chilling with older heads. My homies were all maybe 4 years, 5 years older than me. And I was young. I was fucking 14, 15. And I didn't know quality weed like that. You know what I mean? I was just bringing whatever I could get a hold of type shit. Because my mother raised me right, and you don't show up somewhere empty-handed. So when it was time to go chill, I would show up with something. And one time I brought some bud, and they were like, "What is this fucking shoe shine, fucking stinking ass trash weed you're bringing?" And I was just like, "Okay, well, I'm not bringing weed no more because clearly I don't know good weed from bad weed." And so I would still want to bring something, so I would bring the Dutches, and because I was also the youngest dude out the crew, they would send me to the store for Dutches. And so I became Dutch. And then because back then there were so many Dutch masters all over, or just plain Dutch, Dutch black, Dutch this, Dutch that. I wanted to add a name to the back of it, and what did we used to smoke on people's birthdays and special occasions? We would roll up Gosha Vegas. So I just added the Vega to the Dutch that they gave me, and everybody fucked with it. Like they were like, that's cool. Mind you, I had tried to go through a bunch of names before then, right? Like I tried to name myself, but it didn't stick. None of the names. It was always like, get that bullshit out of here. Ain't nobody calling you Carnage Page, fam. Ain't nobody calling you this or that. All the names that I came up with, they would always be like, fuck out of here. We're not calling you that. Nobody's calling you that. Ray Ray, and they would call me Ray Ray. My real name is Ray. They would call me Ray Ray to like get under my skin because I hated that, right? Because there was always a Ray Ray in every hood, and I'd want to not be Ray Ray because I didn't want to have a name that everybody else had. And definitely my rap name wasn't gonna be Ray Ray. So I was just trying to name myself, and none of the names stuck. But then when they started calling me Dutch, that shit stuck, and the Vega was okay by everybody. So Dutch Vega became
got
the name.
solidified with the Dutch Vega, right?
Dutch Vega.
So you start making a name for yourself. Dutch Vega is doing his thing on grind time. He's the comedian. He's making everybody laugh. You know you're gonna get a good laugh. What was some of the highlights you think of being on grind time? Like, how was that experience? Like some things
it was a great experience. There was wild things that I learned. I learned how to throw events, fucking with them. Cause I'm quick to, again, you know what I mean? Like I don't ever just do one thing, and I'm quick to learn from watching other people do something. So when PH brought me into the first event and had me at the bottom of the card, I was just wild appreciative. And I was just looking to help out in any which way I could. Because I'm like, oh, again, shit that my mother taught me, right? Like, don't show up empty-handed. Be helpful, be useful. Don't just fucking stand there and think, your face card is gonna get you everything in life and shit. And I saw him throwing the events and talking to like the owner of Buddha Lounge or, whatever spot we were fucking in. And I would see things online. New York at the time, when we were throwing those events, Grind Time New York was not the most poppin' division in Grind Time. And that used to eat at me. That shit used to piss me off because I'm competitive and New York is the best to me, right? So when I got in Grind Time and I would see that Grind Time West Coast or Fresh Coast, the way they called it, was like the best division, I'd be like, nah, we gotta shape up. We gotta be better than them. We gotta kill them. We gotta be better than them. And there would be little things that I would see the people talking shit about us online, and it would be like the venue had squeaky floors, the wood, and you could hear when battle rappers were not getting reaction, it would be quiet as a fucking mouse in there, and you could hear the battle rapper like moving side to side nervously, and you could hear it on the wood floors, and I'd be like, yo, we got to do something about that. Like, you know what I mean? Or New Yorkers, you'd hear people talking shit in the background of the battles, and people would talk shit about us online in the comments about that. So I would, after I'm done with my battle, or before my battle, or after my battle, the entire time, I'd be trying to like keep people quiet in the spot so that our footage could come out tighter and be better than what it was. And people wouldn't be able to talk shit about us, having people talking in the background or squeaky floors. Squeaky floors I really couldn't do nothing about, right? But like people talking in the back, I would just on my own. And then trying to be useful, I came to PH with the idea of like, I would see people talking shit about Sarah Connor, not knowing what she was doing for Grind Time East Coast, all the things in the background that she was doing. So I came to PH with an idea of like, yo, here's a logo, here's a bunch of young battle rappers. Why don't we start a training league for Grind Time East Coast and let Sarah host it? That way, motherfuckers could start seeing what it is that she really do. And PH was like, nah, yo, you gonna run it. And I was like, I'm gonna run it. Nah, I'm not gonna run it by myself. Why don't we do it? He was actually, PH said, you're gonna run it. And Soul Khan was asking me how he could help, and Amzilla wants to help too. So y'all do it together. And I was like, word, bet, say no more. And I started, but Soul Khan was like a top tier battle rapper, and he barely would help. And Amzilla was fresh fungus. And to anybody who knows anything about the fresh fungus, you know what I mean? He would be zooted, but I would always be wild on point, and I would make the events happen. They would come and host with me, but I was really like the driving force behind it. And it would help the league. Anything to help us move forward and be better. And
So was that under Grind Time, or did you start your own thing?
no, I mean, it was under Grind Time, but it was definitely a channel that I started separate. Like,
So the
Grind Time would take the best battles.
They would take the best one. Was that the draft league?
The draft league.
That was
Yeah,
the draft league.
the draft league.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you start the draft league, and at this time, you know, you got King of the Dot, you got URL, you got Grind Time, and all these other leagues that are like, you know, blowing up because battle rap is starting to become like mainstream. They're starting to hit.
People are starting to think about it as it could potentially be mainstream.
Right. And I feel like battle rap is one of those things that just can't be mainstream because of its, like when it starts getting too big with the stages and
it's gonna ruin
it loses its essence.
Yep.
So now you start this, and now you got this pool of battlers, and you're trying to get this thing off the ground. Like you got these top tier guys not really helping out. You got these new guys, and you're trying to put together these events. It's a lot of work. Like, what was that process like, and what kept you motivated to do that?
I mean, what kept me motivated, honestly, was just being a team player, bro. You know what I mean? Like, yo, anything to make the team succeed. Anything to... I've always, my whole life, wanted to, more than, like, be, like, I admired and looked up to Biggie, and Biggie was why I started rapping, right? But, like, I didn't want to be a solo artist. Like, I wanted to be in a Wu-Tang. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to be in a crew, and I didn't care if I was the Method Man or if I was the Master Killer or You God. You know what I mean? No disrespect to them. You know what I mean? But like the lesser known names, not the name that everybody's the marquee name. But I didn't care about that. Like, to me, the most important thing is like, yo, making the team successful, making the team look good, and any which way that I could do that, I was gonna do that. And that was one of the ways.
Right. So when you talk about like the team, so like Grind Time, that's like huge. They got the West Coast, Southeast, they're all over. But at that time, it just seemed like they started declining. So like, what do you think went wrong with that? Like, why did Grind Time kind of fizzle out while URL just kind of skyrocketed? KOTD just kind of went up. What do you think went wrong with Grind Time?
Now, I could tell you the exact thing, right? Like, first off, URL came back, Smack came back into business off of one of Grind Time New York's failures. Rest in peace to the homie PH. He's a great dude, but he had a contract for Math versus T-Rex. And that contract fell through because we didn't get them the money in time. And then Smack scooped that battle up, and the first URL event was the headlining battle. So like a battle that we had planned, that we promoted and everything. There's videos on YouTube to this day from back then of PH with Math talking about that battle. It was supposed to happen with us, and we just didn't get them the money for whatever reason. I forgot what the reason was. I forget if it was like, that's something for Direct to talk about more than me, or Poison Pen Direct could talk to it more because they would know what those conversations were behind the scenes with PH. But essentially that battle fell through for us, and Smack came through and scooped that shit up. And then he offered DNA and Cortez, Hollow. I forgot who it was that battled on that first card, on the first URL. But that headlining battle, he snatched that from us. We already built up the anticipation for it, right? It's literally like if Don King was promoting a fight, and then instead of it happening on Don King's card, it happens on somebody else's card. But whoever gets that fight already has the advantage of Don King having promoted that fight and promoted that battle, you know? So we promoted that battle, and then URL Smack came through, and URL was born off that battle. And not long after that, maybe like a year or two, started the demise of Grind Time, because Direct, Lush, and Mad Ills just were butting heads as owners. I think is that Mad Ills and Direct really owned it outright, but rightfully so, Lush One was like one of the owners because the Fresh Coast was the most popular league. Shouts out to Avocado. He used to have them graphics, the graphics that would come over their heads. The dude that did those graphics, Avocado brought him on, and that dude ended up being one of the guys that did the special effects for Transformers, the movie. So the whole shit in the Transformers movies, that was one of the dudes from Avocado's video editing team that took that shit there. If I'm not mistaken, Avocado could speak to that obviously more than me, but like, yeah, from what I understand. And so all three of them fell out, and that was pretty much the end of it after that. I was on the phone calls because we were all the divisions would be on business phone calls for Grind Time. And after Lush left with the Fresh Coast, he took kind of like, he stopped throwing events, and I forgot who, I think it was Absurd or some other dude tried to keep the Fresh Coast running, but it wasn't popping, and we were cracking at the time. That was when PH had stopped being president and Poison Pen started being president, and we started really throwing some fire events, and people were fucking with us, and we were really doing the most, and we were getting shit cracking, and we would be on them phone calls. And I remember being on those phone calls with like the Midwest division with Sonny Bamboo, who ran the Midwest, Absurd, or whoever was running the Fresh Coast, and then Mad Ills and Direct running Florida, and then Poison Pen, Sarah, and me would be on them calls. And I remember being on them calls, and Mad Ills, yo, that's the homie. I had a good relationship with him. He never talked crazy to me, but I had been on them phone calls and heard him talking crazy to the other divisions about them not being popping and not being cracking. And I was like, this is part of what was part of the demise. You know what I mean? Right. I mean, it was already whatever was the beef between him and Lush. And Direct was kind of like not really taking the reins and not like, yo, simmer down, chill out, you wildin'. And things just kind of fell apart from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's tragic, because Grind Time had a great run, man. I remember, they got almost 2,000 videos up, so you can go back and watch. And I used to sit there,
classic,
just real classic I mean, the bars and all of the entertainment. It was super entertaining for me. And you know, and I remember when you had the draft league, even the draft league guys, you
That's how
know,
we first met.
that's how we met because I was watching their battles and I was like, man, Touch got his own league. I want to check this out and I see what's going on. And I noticed that, yo, your camera and audio wasn't where it needed to be. And I was
Right.
like, man, I think I could help.
You think you could help? And you
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
You
I
did.
came in,
You
I
stepped
did.
our shit up.
But the
No,
problem is,
no. Yo, we shouts out to to Real Deal, to Paulie Hustle, to Hazel on the boards. They were our camera people, and we got them from fucking with When Animals Attacks. When Animals Attacks, when I was doing Draft League, I would put on a Yankee jacket along with my Yankee fitted, and I would show up to these smaller leagues, and I would be like, yo, bro, the Yankees are here to draft you. Who's the best in the building? You know what I mean? And I would show up, and when I showed up to When Animals Attacks, I saw their video team of them, Real Deal and them, and with what they had, they worked miracles. But you came through and had even more, you know what I mean? And brought through an even iller setup, and they were also falling back from doing it, but you definitely brought us up a level from where we were.
yeah, so I always wondered. So now I get to ask. So I come through. I remember I came to that event, and then you know, that was Lex Luthor versus Push Packs was the main event, and we did that. Lex is my guy. Shout out to Lex.
Shouts to Lex.
And after that, it was like, the fuck happened?
That was
so
it.
What happened with the fucking?
That was
I
the
was
last,
hyped. Like,
that was
yo,
the
we
last
about to
event.
be-
Nah,
yeah.
facts.
It was my
That
first
was
and last event. What happened
first
to the
grand
draft
opening,
league?
grand closing with
Yeah,
X.
what the fuck is that? So what happened to the draft league after that?
I had reached a point where I was just like, I was doing a lot right at that time. I was still actively battling. So I was like, around that time, I was getting ready for my battle with Everybody Knows. I was recording my first solo album, Adventures of Super Spick, and I was throwing those events, and it was just getting rough juggling everything. And what really made it the last event for me was like, it was just wild, ungrateful battle rappers. You know what I mean? Like, there was battle rappers that really were the worst and thought they were the illest motherfuckers ever. And they would be talking crazy. And I'd be like, yo, you know what, bro? I don't gotta waste my time giving you a platform and spending my money, you know what I mean, to get you an opportunity to have, right, like, showcase your ability when you're not even that good. Like, you's not, you know, it was the dudes like Detox that were like, yo, bro, you're at the bottom of the card and you're continuously at the bottom of the card. And he never made a name for himself, so it proves, you know what I mean? My point, right? Like, it was the dudes that never made a name for themselves that were wild, ungrateful, and they would also be like the most egotistical and talk to you crazy. Then there were some that were at the top of the card, like S. Graham. S. Graham was hilarious. He was probably one of the most viewed battles with him and Uno Lavos. And he would be talking crazy. He'd be like, I'd be trying to book him for a battle. He'd be like, that was around 2012. And he would be like, what are you booking me for the battle for? The world's gonna end. And I'm like, bro, the world's not gonna end, bro. Like, conspiracy theorists. And he would just make booking him really hard. You know what I mean? Like, and people were just making it too hard. But shouts to the people who made it easy. You know what I mean? Like, shouts to Pax, shouts to Lex, because those guys were at the top of the card and they made it easy. You know what I mean? But it was the rest of the card that would make it hard. And it was just like, bro, it was too much. And the money that I'm investing into making the event happen, I could invest that into my music and into promoting my shit and my music and making music videos and doing the things that I needed to do as an individual artist. So it was just like, yo. And then at the time, we were leaving Grind Time and Poison Pen was heading, we were doing Poison Pen TV. And we were going to upload our videos to URL. We were going to become like a subsidiary. Or so we thought. Little did we know that they were pulling the okie doke on us and just trying to get the best thing that Grind Time had left away from Grind Time. So it kind of helped their demise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so us
They was
leaving.
playing chess.
Yeah, they were playing chess. They were playing, yo.
Yeah,
Salute to
Beasley
Smack,
was best,
salute to Beasley. I don't know whose idea that move was. Salute to them because it was a genius move. And I can't be mad. If I was them, I'd probably have done the same exact fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like, yo, come over here. Come on the winning team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, once you out of there, it's like, let's phase you out.
Wow. Yeah. So you were basically on some Jordan on the Wizard shit. You playing for the team you own, and then your knees is hurting, and you like, man.
Yeah, like, nah, I gotta concentrate on my own shit.
Right. So you start working on Super Spick. So let's talk about Super Spick. First of all, that name, fucking hilarious. So
right.
What's the concept behind Super Spick?
I mean, so like I've always done concept albums. So like all my albums really had like an idea behind them, right? Like my last solo was last year, 2024, or 2023 at the end of the year, Christmas of 2023. And it was called Mood Ring, right? And it was like 8 tracks, and each track was named after a different color, and the color of the song set the mood and the idea and the feel for the track. So if it was blue, I was talking about like the dead homies that's gone, because that's what sadness is associated with blue. And so like, you know, I've always done concept albums, and Adventures of Super Spick, the first one, the first solo was this idea of this character that I was in my head back then, which was like a superhero, but like an anti-hero. Like Superman, if he fucking sniffed coke, drank 40 ounces and smoked bogeys and weed, you know what I mean? And like the first 4 or 5 tracks on the album was like concept songs that were like based around this character. And like I had a track called Super Ghetto Friends where Sarah Connor, who's a lesbian, was playing the character of Wonder Dyke. I was Super Spick. Jess James, he has a unibrow, so he was the brow, kind of like the Batman. And then my brother Buddha's was Captain Kush, because all he does is smoke. And then our enemy that we were fighting on the track was Just Days, who's bow-legged, and we called him Legs Luthor. All shit that would not fly nowadays.
Yeah, you get canceled.
Like that would not. I mean, I might still fuck around. People have always historically asked me like, "Where's part 2 to that album?" Maybe one day I'll do it. I'll be feeling like Hove, like, you want to listen to my old shit? Go listen to my old albums. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's hilarious, because like I said, you've always had jokes, from the battle rap to even in your actual music. So you're making the music, but you're putting it out. Like, what's the, at this time, it's like when YouTube is, you can go on YouTube, and streaming wasn't quite a thing yet, as big as it is now. So what were you doing with the music at this time? Were you like selling CDs? How were you trying to move your music?
Right. Performances, I would sell physical copies at any show that I was performing at around the city. Couple of tri-state shows, so like couple things in Connecticut and Jersey, but really mostly in New York City. And physical copies, I would go perform, and people would be like, yo, I fuck with you. And so I'd sell. Also, I was cool with Amadou from Amadou's Corner, African dude that used to sell wild mixtapes on the corner of 14th Street and 7th Avenue. He had that mixtape spot right on the corner. Newborn and Charlie Clips did a couple videos in his mixtape spot, and he sold like 500 copies for me of my original mixtape, which was Frontline. And so then I brought him like 100 copies of Super Spick, and he sold those, and everything else I sold hand to hand. And then, like you said, it was the beginning of online, but there was not really like streaming like that. Like there was definitely, I think Spotify was around, but it was not everybody had it. More people were fucking with SoundCloud and Bandcamp. And so SoundCloud, if anything, SoundCloud that was still before SoundCloud rappers became a thing. And so I would upload to SoundCloud, YouTube, Bandcamp, and I would have it for sale on Bandcamp. I didn't have it for download. You could stream it on SoundCloud, but you couldn't download it for free unless you were, one of those internet wizards that knew how to download off of a link. Yeah. Which shouts to them. Like, I'm not mad at them. I'm never mad at nobody that steals the music, because if you like it enough to steal it, then yo, go ahead. And I'm pretty sure you're probably gonna promote it to somebody. So yeah, I had it on SoundCloud for streaming. I had it on Bandcamp for purchase, download, MP3s. And I had it on YouTube for you to, same thing, stream. And then if you were at a show, you would physical copy, buy. And I had a DutchVega.com at the time when that album first came out, and you could buy the physical copy of the album. But like, it was maybe like fucking, if that, like 100. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a lot of people that bought it online. You know what I mean?
So now you put in this work, you're meeting all these people, you did all of this stuff, you got your music out there, and it's just like, okay, you made 100 sales. Okay, so that's like probably your friends, a couple of your family members.
People, no, there was definitely also
maybe
a lot
couple of people that might have seen it, like, yeah, I'm gonna check this out. So now at this time, you got people that are coming out, they putting shit up on SoundCloud, and it's blowing up.
Right.
Getting hundreds of thousands of downloads and views and stuff. So how did you feel when you see other people that just seemingly come out of nowhere and blow up overnight?
I mean, nah, I've never been a hater. So I never looked at that like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that should be me or something like that. Nah, I never felt the way or nothing like that. It was just like, oh, I gotta grind harder. I gotta grind smarter. I gotta link up with more people. I gotta network. I gotta get, at the time, I thought that a publicist was my way to, I was trying to get on, like, that was when the blogs were still cracking. Like I said, really, that was still before SoundCloud really blew up. So there weren't a lot of people with like millions of views on SoundCloud. It was mostly like the blogs that were blowing people up. So like Two Dope Boys was a thing, and the Two Dope Boys was huge, you know what I mean, at the time, and they were blowing up wild people. So I was trying to get a publicist, and I hollered at one of the old homies that I knew from street teaming days. Because after high school, I had jumped into street teaming, and I met people in the industry, and I worked wild events. Went across the country touring with Brian McKnight, and I went to a homie who was from the hood in Harlem, and he used to be one of Master Ace's homies on the album, on like one of Master Ace's albums. And so he had like a connect up at Complex, and I went to him, and I heard the same thing that I would hear a lot of times when I would get my shit like in the hands of somebody in the industry, which was like, it sounds like you're reaching for radio. And I'd be like, I remember being offended like the first time that I heard that, but then like I look back on it and I'm like, it just shows like how like the gatekeepers of the industry think, and like it speaks more towards them than me. Cause like one of the tracks that they said that I sound like I was reaching for the radio, it was just like a Lex Luger type sounding beat, and I was just going for like 100 bars type shit. There was no hook on the shit. So it's like, how do I sound like I'm going for the radio if there's no hook on it and I'm just rapping for 2.5 minutes? So you know what I mean? Right. It's not that I'm going for the radio, it's just that I was really that good and the pocket was that good and it sounds like something that could have played on the radio, but because it was maybe over a Lex Luger beat and Meek had already blown up off that, or Waka Flocka had already blown up off that sound, they didn't want Bronx Afro-Latino rapping over that shit and blowing up off that sound too, type shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was just like, oh, it sounds like you're reaching for the radio. And I'll be like, all right, cool. I just keep on going. You know what I mean? I keep on, and it's always hard with that type of shit because it's like, people always say like, what do you, if I were to tell you, people who don't know about the industry, right? They always ask you a question like, if you were to play one song to get on, what song would you play? It's like, I don't know, bro. Especially not when my sound is spread out. You know what I mean? I need to know what you like so that I can know how to appeal to you. You know what I mean? Because if I'm just playing you what is my shit that I like, I don't know if that's the pocket that you're going to be fucking with. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where it's just like, I didn't really look at it like, you know, like, oh, those guys took a spot that I should have, or they're blowing up and I should be blowing up too. Nah, I just always looked at it like, I just got to grind harder, got to grind smarter, got to work harder at this. I got to, you know what I mean? It's always on me. It's always the way I looked at it. You know what I mean?
Right, because when you first started, you know, your first rhyme had that 80s vibe, and then that was just like out of style.
Right.
And then now, you know, going into the 2000s, 2010s, you know, do you feel like your style might have been outdated at that time, or was it up to par with what was going on at the time?
I mean, like I said, right? If they saying like it sounds like you reaching for radio, then it's like, okay, so it sounds like I could be on radio. You know what I mean? Except you don't want this one on the radio, you know?
Right.
Or I shouldn't be reaching for radio, which is like, I come from an era where we wanted to be on the radio. You know what I mean? So like, I definitely did have songs that were like, yo, commercially viable, I guess you could call it. You know what I'm saying? And I do that to this day. Like, I'm not, there were rappers back in the days that would pick beats, and they would pick beats that would purposely not be good beats. And I'd be like, why are you doing that, bro? Like, yo, this beat is more fire. Yeah, but that sounds like it'll play on the radio. I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being on the fucking radio? You want to get heard. You want to get known. You want to, you know what I mean? So like, nah, I think that, I mean, definitely now, right? Like, it's one of those things where like, I don't try to do, like, I'm not gonna try to, I'll rap over some drill shit, but I won't start talking about going on drills when I'm not going on drills. You know what I mean? I'm not going to adopt a flow that isn't mine just to adopt it, and you know what I mean? Like, nah. But I make music that people still seem to fuck with and be like, yo, that sounds like sounds. Look, I was doing this album, Volume 4 with the Littyyy Bros, and we did a freestyle song, like 80s freestyle genre type beat track. And we did this maybe like 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago. It just hasn't seen the light of day because we didn't put out the album that it's supposed to be on. And in that 2 years' time, Fat Joe just finished coming out with a freestyle sounding beat, a freestyle sounding track last year. And then on Drake's project that he just dropped, Nokia, is a freestyle. So it's like, I'm ahead of my time a lot of times, you know what I mean? It's just, it's not in the cards, you know what I mean? And also it's not, I'm not, you know, that's, the industry isn't looking for a dude my age to put on radio or to put the button behind or to put the machine behind, you know what I mean? But that's also not necessarily what I'm looking for at this stage in my career.
Right, yeah. So like you mentioned the drill rap, you know, nowadays it's a different type of vibe, you know, the lyrical content, the subject matter, and even just what goes on outside of the music is spilling over into real life. Like before you would have a battle, like you come from battle rap, you guys would, you know, diss each other and then go outside and smoke and drink together.
Right.
Now these kids are getting in the studio, they talking about your dead
Homie smoking on the dead homie pack.
So now what do you think about the current state of drill rap and where rap is going now as far as that?
I mean, listen, man, I don't want to see us killing each other, right? But also at the same time, I could understand where if somebody's talking about, ha ha, fuck your dead homie. Oh, I'm gonna slide on you. You know what I mean? So like I understand, but then it also becomes like a eternal fucking dog chasing its tail type of scenario. You know what I mean? Like one person said smoking on this person's pack, and now this other gang wants to retaliate. They retaliate, and then now they're smoking on somebody's pack, and then now that other gang got to get back for you smoking on that pack, and then so it's just eternal. But I'm also not like, I've never been into like conscious rap. Like I grew up in the streets of New York City. I remember growing up at Eastchester Gardens in the projects, and I remember being a little dude and hearing the OGs make fun of this dude that was walking by blasting like De La Soul or Tribe Called Quest out his boombox. And they were like, get that dashiki nerd rap the fuck out of here. And I remember internalizing that. And my older sister was she was like religious and going to youth groups, and she was into Tribe Called Quest. So I was just like, that ain't my vibe. You know what I mean? Like that ain't what I'm around. That's not what we're growing up around in Eastchester Gardens. That's not what I was around growing up in the Bronx. I was around street shit. So it was like, I've always loved street shit. I've always embraced it. I've always been in the streets to a degree, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? And so I'm not gonna sit here and knock drill rappers for, you know what I mean? What they're just living in their youthful moment, and hopefully more of them can get out of it without dying. You know what I mean? Like that's all that I could say for them. Like I hope that they can make it out without dying. I hope that some of them can make a career without going under the jail. But when you blowing up everything that you're doing on a record, bruh, that's hard. I don't think that a lot of them are going to have that opportunity. But shouts to the ones that do, right? Like there are some that like Sleepy Hollow seems like he's kind of made like a little bit of a transition to doing more certain guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully.
I saw a meme a while ago that said that like as soon as the weather gets nice out, old heads start playing Jadakiss. And I said, damn. So are we getting to that point where, you know, like that De La Soul guy with the boombox, you know, now we riding around to the Jada.
Listen to Jada? I mean,
like that's
definitely our
head
generation. Definitely our generation is listening to.
So do you feel like, we getting, do you feel like you getting to that age where you could get phased out? Because rap, I feel like, is the only genre of music where you get to a certain point where you just become too old to do it. And it's like, it doesn't apply to jazz and rock and everything else. But with rap, once you get a certain point, they looking at you like, yo, Unc.
Yeah. I think that used to be the temperature for the culture, but I think that now people are taking more ownership of, like I was saying to you before off camera, right? Like between pandemic to now, like when pandemic happened, I remember there was still like not a lot of support for indie shit. But ever since pandemic, there's more, your family wants to support what you're doing independently. Your friends want to support what you're doing independently. People in general, more people want to develop their own shit in local markets. And so I think with all that being said, there is like more respect for OGs, unks, older heads that are doing their thing nowadays than there were back in the days. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's
even more accessible.
Yeah, more accessible, and there's even dudes blowing up that, I don't want to sound like I'm throwing shade at them, but like them Griselda boys weren't young when they got on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
that's a good thing. That, Two Chainz wasn't young when he got on.
Yeah, because he was Titty Boy.
Titty Boy. He was Titty Boy first for a long time.
Yeah.
And when he was Duffel Bag Boy with Disturbing the Peace, he was already not a young dude. You know what I mean? By the time he blew up with 2 Chainz, he was already like headed towards his 40s. You know what I mean? So, and right now, I'm pretty sure he's in his late 40s or mid to late 40s, you know?
You've made a similar change too. So you were once Dutch Vega.
Right.
So now you go by...
Now, I mean, now I, technically speaking, go by LittyyyBro Flacko.
LittyyyBro Flacko. Okay.
Right.
So let's talk about that change. So you changed from Dutch Vega to LittyyyBro.
Well, I changed from Dutch Vega to Flacko Bayo.
Flacko, okay.
And then I started doing this LittyyyBros thing with the bros, and in order to increase the algorithm and the search for LittyyyBros, I was like, yo, all of our solo projects are gonna be LittyyyBro XYZ. LittyyyBro XYZ. So LittyyyBro Pax, LittyyyBro Paulie's got a solo project coming out this year. LittyyyBro Figueroa might have one, if not later this year, the top of next year. LittyyyBro Panic, like we all gonna have, and that'll though increase, right? So like maybe somebody who fucks with Paulie but didn't fuck with LittyyyBros, they're gonna go search for LittyyyBro Paulie, but as they typing out LittyyyBro, they gonna come across all the, and that'll trigger all the, you know, search. So it's hustling smarter, right?
Right.
That's why the name went from Flacko Bayo to LittyyyBro Flacko. And the reason I changed the name was because also, you know, when you looked up Dutch Vega on YouTube, the first thing that would pop up were my battles. And it was like, I wanted to have the music pop up more first. And then also, I kind of wanted to graduate from those days. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really not Dutch Vega no more. I had super stopped being the little dude in the crew going to the store for Dutches. I wasn't doing that no more. I didn't even roll my own Dutches no more. I got to the point where like everybody, there were younger people rolling for me. My wife is rolling up for me. You know what I mean? It's just one of them things where like, yo, I hadn't rolled a blunt in like, it felt like damn near 10 years I hadn't rolled a blunt myself. So it was just like, yo, and then also one of the artists, many of the artists that I admire have had name changes. You know what I mean? And aliases. And Kool Keith is from the Bronx, OG, triple OG, right? But Kool Keith is like, he would have whole hustles. Like he was signed to one label as Kool Keith, signed to another label as Dr. Doom, signed to another label as Black Elvis, signed to another label as Dr. Octagon, signed to another label as like, yo, bro, he just kept on making names and getting checks in different places. Like, yo, you keep that name, you keep that catalog. I'm gonna go over here, get another check, make an album for them under this name. Then I'm gonna go over here, get another check. And so, I mean, I respect it. And I was just like, yo, I felt like it was time for a name change. And so, name change.
Dope, dope. So yeah, man. So where can people find the new LittyyyBro stuff? What y'all, what's going on with the LittyyyBros? I got projects coming out. What's the latest?
Yeah, we got a volume 4 coming out this year. Volume 1 came out pandemic year. When everything shut down, everybody was in their house, afraid for their lives, not going outside, and we was outside. We were outside heavy. Right. And we were just shooting wild videos. And we was, when studios were shut down, I went and bought equipment and just fucking made studio in the crib. And then we just fucking bought lenses for the iPhone. And we're shooting music videos on the iPhone all over New York City. I felt like, yo, New York City is so beautiful. And we always only shooting music videos in the hood. I was like, I'm gonna shoot my music videos in Central Park next to Bethesda Fountain and fucking locations that other people couldn't. Diddy walked down fucking the middle of, I forget what street that was in Queens in the fucking Hate Me Now video. He walked right down the middle of the street. I was like, we gonna walk right down the middle of fucking Madison Avenue. Cause Madison Avenue is, we waited until 11 o'clock at night, but during pandemic, there was nothing empty. So, you know what I mean? So we did that, and so now we're on volume 4, and we're dropping solo projects, and you can find that shit on all streaming platforms. You can find it on fucking Tidal, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, wherever you stream music. Littyyy Bros, Littyyy with 3 Y's, so Littyyy, and then Bros. And yo, the movement is moving, because since we came out, we did that, and now I look up our shit, and there's other people biting the name. Littyyy Bros with Littyyy with 3 Y's. And it's like, yo, clearly we doing something right. That other people want to be a part of. You know, I'm pretty sure what ASAP Mob went through, ASAP Rocky and ASAP Ferg went through once ASAP came out, right? Like, there were random people on social media naming themselves ASAP fucking such and such, ASAP this dude from the block, ASAP, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
manipulating the algorithm.
Yeah, so now there's a bunch of Littyyy this, Littyyy that, that I'm like, all right, okay.
There was something right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, maybe one of these days we'll snatch up one of those Littyys and, yo, I'll sign you to the label and we'll put out your project and we'll fucking curate your fucking album and, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Do the fucking, take you under the wing and show you the ways that we do our shit.
For real. Nah, that's dope. Well, yeah, man. My boy Flacko came through XCuseMeTV. That's what it is, man. Appreciate you coming through.
I appreciate you for having me, Brody.
The origins to now, the battle rap, and was Sunroof part of the part? Was
Volume 3.
That was volume 3.
Volume 3. You shot the music video for which, by the way, mostly everybody thinks that that's like the best video on the. Again, X always comes through with the wild quality work. We had a great story. Shorty with the wilded out Spanish wifey in the video and shit.
Yeah.
And we shot the video on my dead end
dancing
block,
out the sunroof and all of that.
right across the street from Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
It was lit.
Yeah,
it was lit. It was dope. Nah, definitely check that out. Check out Littyyy Bros. Check out Littyyy Bro Volume 1, 2, definitely Volume 3, and check out Sunroof. X did that music video. Check it out on YouTube. Give it a spin. Give it a like. Leave a comment. We appreciate everybody who does. I engage with everybody, yo. I'm definitely not one of them artists that's like too big. I engage with everybody who supports our shit. You leave a comment on some shit. You leave a question. You reach out. You friend me. You follow me. I'm not like too big to fucking holler back. I definitely never liked people that was on that type of energy. I feel like what we built has been organic, and part of that organic growth has been me engaging with people and fucking, you know, there's people that started out as fans and now they fam, you know what I mean? And that's lit. I think that's a great thing.
Man. I'm just glad that you never got discouraged and you kept going, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they be passionate about something, and then if they don't get to a certain level of success that they feel they should be at, they give up.
Yeah, nah, I don't feel that way. If anything, I feel like, yo, I can't give up. Like, I love this shit too much. I love making music. To me, these are my babies. And if I can't get them babies out, I can't have other creative babies. I can't do other creative things. I need to get these projects out in order to be able to let out other creative outlets.
Definitely. Well, yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming through. XCuseMeTV.
Littyyy Bros.